www.redhotradio.fm.
Thank you for joining me for this.
Please, thank you, Lord.
Okay, so this is Asadah Kirkland, founder of the Soulful Chicago Book Fair. I would like to start out with like a short little biography, maybe a paragraph or two about who you are and what you do.
I've been in the literary industry for years, unplanned. I think in 1999, I was planning on opening, it was called the Read My Mind Literary Cafe. And that was in New York. It was going to be a combination of a cafe and bookstore, Black bookstore. And got very, very far with that, but New York is a different beast. So if your store is just 1,000 square feet, what? $77 per square feet, baby. So that's $77,000 a month. We're not doing that.
Right.
So, so that was fun. And back in the 90s, I used to manage the Afrocentric bookstore downtown Chicago. It was on Jackson and Wabash. And then in 2000, maybe 2006-ish or so, 2007, I edited and helped my sister, her name is Lady Prema, helped her come out with her book. And then fast forward to 2014, came to Chicago and thought up the Read My Mind Literary Cafe. No, that's not true. The Soulful Chicago Book Fair. But when I came up with the Soulful Chicago Book Fair, I was trying to figure out like what we're gonna do for a logo, blah, blah, blah. But I had a logo for that Read My Mind Literary Cafe in 99, and that became the logo for the book fair. Only thing we changed was it used to be a body sitting on a book holding a plate of food, and then I made it into a body sitting on top of what holding the Chicago skyline. So anyway, there we have it. And I'm an author. How about that? I became an author in 2009. I came out with my first book, Beating Black Kids. It was a byproduct of when I had a stroke. My daughter was upset one day. I had come out the hospital and I was being watched. We were being sort of supervised by a friend, but my daughter, her mom, she's about 5 years old, and her mama horizontal from being in a stroke or stuff. And so, I guess the girl who was watching this, maybe she ain't like something she did, but she ripped up some money. She found some real money in the house and she ripped it up. So my friend was like, yo, you need to spank her, And I was like, what? Like in my mind, like, what? I would never hit my daughter, that whole thing. And I really saw, I returned to work like 3 months later and told them, I think I'm gonna write a book, y'all. It's called Beating Black Kids. And they just went on and on talking about it for so long. I was like, oh my God, they're purging. So I wrote the book because I saw that we needed to confront that issue and we needed solutions on better things to do. So my first book, Beating Black Kids, came out in 2009. And my second book is called Bitcoin for Black People. That came out in 2017, I think. But my daughter's book came out when she was 7. That came out in 2012. It's called Urban Girl Adventure. So yeah, literary world just kind of was in our little life. But when we came to Chicago, I kind of was in a space of who takes care of the author, like who creates events that authors really benefit from or that are author-centric, And me doing the Soulful Chicago Book Fair really came out of that in terms of its, what its focus is.
So tell us a little bit about what the Soulful Chicago Book Fair is and what it encompasses.
Girl, what you doing, a documentary? Anyway, the Soulful Chicago Book Fair is a celebration of Black literary life. And it's really about any and all things the word. Like, what do we do? Poetry, spoken word, songwriting, playwriting, writing books. And it's an event where people can really take stage. People always ask me stuff like, can I share a booth with somebody? And I'd be like, nope, this is not a book flea market. We're not doing that. People are going to come to your booth and celebrate you and understand who you are and what have you. So yeah, it's a way to acknowledge us as literatis out there. Because in Chicago's really good with supporting the arts, but it does well with supporting like theater and dance and fine art. But there's not a lot to support literary arts. And so that's kind of where I come in.
What makes the Soulful Chicago Book Fair different from other book fairs?
I take a lot of care because I'm an author to make it an experience that I would like if I was an author. And so when I plan it with authors in mind, like what'll make the road easiest? Like people ask me, am I going to have a table? Am I going to have a tent? I'll be like, what? Girl, you don't have a tent, table, chairs? What? Like I can't even think of what? I mean, there's contracts, there's everything that just makes it a good experience for an author. And I think through what the author will experience, because I've been to some festivals before with authors, and boy, are they terrible. They'll like have 2 blocks of authors and 1 block of general merchandise. We're dealing with a race of psychosis. They go into the general merchandise to get some shea butter and some earrings and a pocketbook, and then they're going to come back to you with a book and say, oh my God, I just spent all my money. And then they don't, and so there's no like a special environment for the authors. And so, yeah, I made it so that, everybody's a star. We're not having like a big, this is the best author. Nah, everybody is a star. You really just get to learn about your books. I had one girl, it was her first book, and she brought like 80 books, but she sold 68 of them.
Nice.
Whoa, for your first time?
Nice.
Of your book out, And so I go around, I show authors how to set up their booths. I make sure I share display items with them and before the event so that they can really learn how to present themselves well. We go over like the banners and the cards and the marketing aspect of it. That's another thing that's a little different from the book fair than others, is that we market our authors prior to the event. So like we'll be shooting commercials on Friday. We shot commercials last week, I think last Tuesday or Wednesday. And so that people can have something to give to people to come on out, to the book fair. So I just take a lot of pride in having the authors feel special. Mm-hmm. That's big to me. And so I think, for the money that they pay, it's not expensive at all, but it's just so much that's given regardless of the money, that is paid. I just really want them to leave and have a good memory and have a good experience, networking and everything else.
All right. So on August 5th, 2023, you'll be presenting the 5th annual Soulful Chicago Book Fair. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, let's discuss what's taken place over the years. So the Soulful Chicago Book Fair was born in 2015. Tell us a little bit more about the inception.
The inception of the book fair really came from, I used to chill in a cafe there on 61st and Eberhard, and me and this brother was talking about, the Harlem Book Fair, and why doesn't Chicago have a book fair that celebrates Black writers and what have you? This is the home of Gwendolyn Brooks and this and that. And so Let's Do a Book Fair came out. Now that was 2015, because I moved back to Chicago in 2014. Anyway, so the idea was born, and I kept asking, what's up with the book fair? And it was kind of like, okay, yeah, it just kept being kind of prolonged. Mm-hmm. And then at one point, the brother said to me, you know what? You do the book fair and I'll help you do the permit. I was like, what? Like I felt kind of like abandoned, I guess. But I had already started the motion, baby. I mean, it was already, the vision was out. There was no turning back on it. It was a thing that people, that they believed in. And so there were some things that I needed to do to make myself and the book fair real for people because, I'm asking to block off 7 blocks and reroute the bus. And, who am I? When I think the alderman at the time said to one of the elders in my life, he was like, why she need all that space? It's just books. And she was like, I don't think you know who that is. I don't think you know Asadah, And even the brother that came up with the idea with me, he was like, why don't you start small and have a block party like on maybe Everhart between 60 and 61st. I was like, what? Like it really dawned on me, like people don't really understand what I'm talking about. Like it's a book fair, it's not a book party. So, that magnitude, I do things in magnitude. And sometimes regular people just don't, magnitude is not a thing. That theory of starting small is a thing that people believe in, but I don't believe in that. Like what? I don't do that. So I continued the building of it and I hired somebody to help me and that didn't go well. And it was a lot of little bumps, but at the end, so to make myself known more, I did have to do monthly events. And I did a couple of events called Microphone Check. And those were open mics where people came and did everything from poetry to violin playing to reading and all of that. Then I did a couple of events. I think I did 3 events called Black Authors Unite. And those were networking events for authors to come who wanted to be in the book fair. I had activities where it was like fiction versus nonfiction versus children, and all of the authors that were those different genres had to compete against one another, and those were fantabulous. And then I did a workshop for learning how to self-publish. And then I had a series every Tuesday of the month of maybe June or July. I did a series with the Black Library in the artist space. What is that? Theaster Gates, Stony Island Arts Bank. So he has the Johnson & Johnson library in there looking like the library behind you right now. And what we had to do was the author that was the feature had to choose a book in the library to compare with their book. And so there was an audience for that. And it was just a lot of little things like that I had to do to create sort of a culture and a following of me in the literary world. And so by the time the book fair came, we had formed a nice family of authors and people coming through and all that good stuff.
Now moving on to 2016, the Soulful Chicago Book Fair took place on 61st and King Drive, and you also held an annual holiday book fair with the Chicago Public Schools. Is that correct?
So basically, the book fair, I initially had it to where it was taking like 7 blocks. And the city and the alderman was like, yo, you can't do that. I was like, what are you talking about? But it really had to do with like the movement of traffic and this and that. And so instead of letting me go 7 blocks long, I went 4 blocks long, but I was able to go wide, like into the lots and what have you. And so it was sufficient. I am so happy it wasn't 7 blocks because it was so taxing on us the first year. Like you got to walk back and forth, 4 blocks back and forth all day. Oh my God. It was so taxing. But basically for marketing purposes, I told everybody it was on 61st between Cottage and King because they can kind of get a sense of that. But yeah, it was between Everhart and Langley, basically. But we're not going to say that. Oh, it's between Everhart and Langley. People are going to talk about, where's that? So anyway, so yeah, it was on 61st Street. And it was on 61st Street because its inception came from a cafe right there on 61st Street in Everhart. So it was like having a book fair right outside the cafe made just sense. And it was also a thoroughfare that was large enough to have a festival, but it had enough lots and didn't have the businesses so that I was able to be creative and have things in the lots and not have to worry about like when you go into a Hyde Park and let's say they doing the Silver Room Festival, it took 20 minutes to walk 1 block, because it was so packed. Mm-hmm. So, and, because you got businesses and this and that. So I didn't have any of that problem. And yeah, so it was dope. And so that's where it was. And then What was the second question you said?
How did the CPS, what role did the CPS play in?
Oh, Chicago Public Schools. So, um, Chicago Public Schools were only really involved. I don't even know. I don't even know how people found out about it, found out about it, but schools came to the table and became a part of the book fair. Like Common School was in my book fair, but I didn't know it was Common School when it did, but okay. So Common School was there. We had this other school, I don't know the name of it, but they had a booth there, and they just basically promoted like enrollment in their schools. And I did have an event. There's an organization downtown called ThoughtWorks, and it was a bunch of sisters, very kind of upscaley tech company. It had like young Black people that were app developers and all kinds of stuff. But they had something that they had a program called Books and Breakfast or something like that. And they were doing it out of this school, Donahue School over on Cottage Grove near Pershing. And so they had me come in to do some literary programming for their Books and Breakfast. And so I had a workshop that day that had Usini Perkins there as a playwright, Maggie Brown as a composer, and at the time, Sida Weber, who was a painter primarily. He did a lot of the murals on King Drive. And so they all did 3 separate workshops with the kids, and they had them switch and learn different skills, and it was dope. So did something like that with the schools. But other than that, yeah, that was like the main tie with a school per se, as opposed to we did have, because after the first book fair, everybody was like, when's the next one? And I was so tired. I was like, what? Like in my mind, I didn't even think towards no next one, but the pressure to have a holiday book fair was just there. So I had a holiday book fair right after that. Either a holiday or maybe I had a Black History book fair. I think I had a Black History book fair.
I think the Black History themed one came in 2017, the following year.
Okay. Yeah, the holiday one might have come before then.
Okay.
And at the time I was calling it a Kwanzaa book fair, but then I learned after the second year of calling it a Kwanzaa book fair that Black people not really down with that. You got to just call it a holiday book fair and let them choose what they want to do. You know, so yeah, and then I started having a holiday book fair every year until, of course, when COVID came, it came right before, because if it came in like March or May, what are them M's, you know, we would have been in August. And so, of course, we didn't have a book fair, but I really needed the rest. So that was great.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Black History themed book fair from 2017.
I mean, it was dope in terms of what it stood for. But you know, I don't have a large recollection of it. I know it was in the Lutheran school in Hyde Park. It's a Lutheran part of the college or something. And it was dope in that it was what it was. It's just that, you know, I don't do nothing for Black History Month as a person. You know what I'm saying? And so you just have that dynamic. Like, I think it was good. It was attended well, but it could have been attended more. And I think that's true for a lot of the book events outside of mine. I've seen one really populated well. That was Daryl Harvey did one for the children's authors, and it was in a very small room, but it was sufficient for the number of authors they had in it. So it really looked crowded because, you know, you're in a smaller room, and I thought it was great. I thought it was a good flow. But doing those holiday book fairs, while there seemed to be a demand for them, they just took work. They were kind of easy to organize, but and I felt, you know, there's this thing where, buy books for the holiday. And that was really sort of the impetus to have that people buy a bunch of stuff for the holiday, but what about buying the books? But yeah,
right.
Black people funny, you know, you got to really just rock with them got to figure out how to rock with them so that it doesn't, so that's a beneficial experience for everybody.
Black Lit Fest. Do you want to speak to that? I believe it was inside of the Harold Washington Library, downtown Chicago, 2018.
Yeah, so basically, I was in the library chilling one day in the Harold Washington Library with a friend. And so this lady was like, Asadah Kirkland? I was like, yeah, what's up, sis? Whatever. So she happened to be a part of the Harold Washington Library. And she was like, we want to have a Black Lit Fest here in the library. And I was like, all right. And she was like, we have the space, but we don't have a connection to Black writers like that here. And so that's where she saw my role coming, and they wanted me to replicate the book fair inside the Harold Washington Library. And so they gave me like close to 4,000 square feet of space. It looked like a promenade basically on that floor. They made all of these beautiful 5-foot tall collages of the book fair. So on one side was the collages, on the other side there were these quotes by everybody from Garvey to Malcolm, this and that. And they had them hanging from the ceiling. So you like walk through this promenade of images of the book fair hanging from the ceilings. And then they had like these glass encased books of our authors. So like it would be like they had my book, Beating Black Kids. And then, but around it was like all of the artillery, like the belt, the hanger, the different things that people get beat with. And so they did that for different books. Maggie Brown was able to bring her grandfather's work in there. It was dope. It was like museum level, like, putting our stuff in glass cases and having the placards on the front to explain them. And then they made these friggin', I don't know, what is like 3 foot by 3 by 3 some foot. I don't know. Like they were huge posters of our authors as well. And so on easels around the promenade were these glass encased books. But then there were also these easels with these posters on them. And how I chose the authors to be presented at the time, if you were a member, had a membership that they will be a part of that made them privy to different experiences. And so, yeah, it was amazing and it was classy. And it was like every weekend we had programming. So one weekend might have been children's authors. Another weekend was something else, men and different, whatever authors fit that category. Either spoke that day, presented. It was very classy. We had cellists play and all kind of, it was just another tier of activity. And so Eugenie Perkins, who's the brother who did that poem, Hey Black Child, that a lot of people have read it, said in school and stuff, that people thought that Maya Angelou wrote that or County Cullen wrote that, but they didn't write that. Eugenie Perkins wrote that. He just passed away not too long ago. But he was in that library and he said, I've never seen anything like this. He said, I've never seen a library embrace local authors this way. And everybody was there. Hakeem Adabudi was there. He presented, like he was part of my membership also. And so, it's like very, for me, a tad humbling because it's like, even though it wasn't like teams of people coming through, I was able to provide a certain type of caliber of an experience by my authors, doing that and the Black Lit Fest. And then we had, they wanted us to present and have a place in the Black Women's Expo. So I was able to do that and have members at the Black Women's Expo, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah.
So the same year you had a radio show, Gathering of Griots. How did that project come to be? And who produced the show? And is it still on the air now? How can people get in tune if they want to?
How you know all this stuff?
I'm a researcher.
You dope. Dang. I'm like, shoot, she dope. So Naima Latif has a radio series called The Female Solution. And she used to do the radio show every single day, 5 days a week, about different topics. But then she got wise and had different women present on the female solution for the different days. So I think I was like Tuesdays. And I had a show that I created called Gathering of the Griots. And basically I did an interview of one or two authors for those 2 hours between 7 and 9 every Tuesday morning. And it was dope because I was interviewing my authors, and then they could take the radio clip and share it. And, I got to ask them about their books and what it meant and this and that. And it was just dope. I don't play around when it comes to like organizing. And so it wasn't like, dead space. And so like they had real questions, great interviews, never a dull moment. People could call in if they wanted. And so, so I did Gathering of the Griots until I didn't want to do it anymore.
What were some of the highlights of the 4th annual Soulful Chicago Book Fair of 2019?
Oh yeah, that was dope. I felt, it's one of the biggest challenges in all of the book fairs has always been finance. Always, always, always. But I think 2019, I was able to organize a great event without the pinch of the financial whatever. I think we just scaled down a bit with the entertainers, whatever. But at the same time, my girl, Lynn Richardson is a financial, she likes Suze Orman, the Black Suze Orman, or whatever you want to say. For Black celebrities, she's a finance person, right? And she was on Millionaire Mondays on V103 or whatever that was, and maybe Millionaire Mondays with Steve Harvey for sure. She was on that. But me and Lynn went to Northwestern together, and freshman year we were like kind of best friends. And so not too long ago, I guess it was 2018-ish maybe, I went to the University of Chicago to see MC Light speak. I wanted to see her because I know she had some dealings with Scientology, and I'm a Scientologist. And so I went to go see her stilo, and that was cool. And so afterwards, I was going to the table to buy her book. And when I picked up the book and was paying for it, the lady that was taking the money looked up, and it was Lynn. And we screamed like crazy, like, ah! And so MC Light turned around like, oh, what's going on? But since then, Lynn was kind of like okay, check it out. So for the 2019 book fair, both Lynn and MC Light presented. I didn't have to pay for them. They, brought their books, sold their books. They did talk on stage and sold their books afterwards. But it was dope because Lynn was like telling her assistants, okay, call Light, tell her to do a commercial for the book fair, blah, blah, blah. So we having like commercials done by MC Light. What we doing? Like the same sister that's on the show, doing the Grammys or doing whatever these shows are. But and she hooked us up. Like 2 years she did commercials for us. And they became sponsors for our metaverse too. So 2019's theme was real strong because it was called Women Write in Rain, right? Mm-hmm. And it was really about the female writers out there in the universe. And even our procession in the beginning when we did that might have been a year that you was drumming actually. Mm-hmm. But man, to see them sisters leading that float, holding their books up in the air, oh man, it was moving, so 2019 was dope in that, right? Some people was like, how you get MC Light? Yeah, that was the vibe.
Now you did speak about the metaverse. We're going to come back to that. Still in 2019, your Soulful Chicago Book Fair being one part, and what's the background on the Book Fair Foundation, as in when it was created, and what's the difference between the two?
Right. So you have the Soulful Chicago Book Fair, which has always been an LLC. Mm-hmm. And then you had, I created the Soulful Book Fair Foundation.
Okay.
And I created the Soulful Book Fair Foundation because, my activity is very non-profity, not for profity.
Mm-hmm.
And, the opportunities for grants and all of that, pretty much you got to be a not-for-profit.
Mm-hmm.
And I always stood away from not-for-profit energy because I'm like, that's a mantra that I don't live by. A not-for-profit. What? Like, we as a people have an issue with being for profit a lot of times. It doesn't mean you bad. It's just we just were the foundation of a capitalistic system that, we believe capitalism is wrong and this and that. And I can get with that. Okay, fine. But as beings, we don't exploit people. We don't exploit ourselves. We don't, do sell people for money. Like that's not even in our universe. I mean, you want to talk about, Africa, gave us up as slaves and this and this and that. But you really do have to understand like the concept. Did they really understand that they were sending people into shadow slavery?
Yeah, right.
To experience that level of torture.
Right.
And you weren't just assimilating into the culture like when that movie Woman King, which I love so thoroughly. I think they did a good job at portraying what happens when you enslave your people. We saw part of it where, okay, you lose a war between these two, and now you either in a army or like you in the African army, or you're now going to assimilate into this culture or whatever. Not torturing, raping, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, how I get on that doggone topic?
Nonprofit.
So, we do a lot of things that are so non-profity. It just makes sense to have it. It wasn't anything heavy. I didn't grow up saying I really want a not-for-profit. It's just as a business model, you got some not-for-profits that make millions. For real. Red Cross and all them, they make millions. My homie is an accountant for them. And she was like, you would not believe the millions. So it's a game, that we need to know how to play, to where you don't really have the not-for-profit and then a for-profit. You have a for-profit and then you get a not-for-profit arm.
Right.
So you could play a game with your business and do things without your taxes and do. We gotta right now I'm learning about, it's a 508c1a, and that's a not-for-profit, but you have no ties to the IRS at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so blah blah blah. So the Soulful Book Fair Foundation, I had a website built for it. Right now it's soulfulbookfairfoundation.org, and it has its thing. People can go on there and pay one time. They can do quarterly, they can do annually, and just donate. And that the organization I did that with is Flip Cause. They actually work with not-for-profits specifically to help manage, fundraising campaigns or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I just made that, and I primarily operate through that now. And because of it, I was able to get a large grant from the city for this new book fair. And, there was no dancing around being eligible for money.
Okay. So there was also another thing that took place with Burst into Books. I read that you curated a Chicago Children's Book Fair in collaboration with Burst into Books. So what was the outcome of that collaboration and the details on that event?
Jarima is a passionate person about reading and she's the CEO of Burst into Books. Everybody I know just loves that. As soon as they hear the topic, they be like, Burst into Books, oh my God, what is that? So she always wanted to do a book fair. And so joining forces, I was like, shit, what? Of course. Cause she had me she was the dean of a school when I first met her. Of a charter school, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, I think it was in the same building as Corliss, if that's on 100 something in Cottage. But anyway, so We decided to do the book fair together, and that was cool. I was able to get DTLR to donate like gift cards to the kids, and we had a Timuel Black essay contest that the kids did, and it was really dope. Because I have a background in teaching as well, so I just like all that universe. And I thought that it was attended well, but it's always could be better to me. Like, um, to really make people come out is a thing. It takes a different level of marketing. But I was just surprised in that. Like, I know what I do marketing, but when we had the fair in her school, and I remember like it was a couple of teachers that were there on that weekend and maintenance man, and they were like, "What y'all doing here today?" And I was like, like, how you don't know about this?
Right.
Like, I don't, what? Like, how everybody in the school don't know about the book fair? I don't understand. So from that standpoint, my vibe was just a little bit like, okay, clearly, what? Like, marketing wise, to me, that was somewhat of a faux pas because everybody in the school could have been there. Everybody in the school, every staff, everybody should have been there to support it. But that means it. So I didn't understand to what degree or seriousness it was taken, or whether it was just like you think it's not sufficient to just have everybody, like all the vendors come, because then they end up looking at each other like, what?
Right.
And then there's no public to buy their books.
Right.
So it was okay, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be. But I wasn't fully in charge of that, and it was way south. I don't do stuff way south like that, but. Whoever had this Flossmoor Juneteenth event this past weekend or the weekend before, they did a hell of a job promoting because it was packed, you know what I mean, all day long, that type of thing. So anyway, yeah, girl. So that was cool.
Let's take a look at the whole virtual Soulful Chicago Book Fair that you presented during the pandemic. What did it take to put on such an event, and how likely are you to present another virtual book fair again?
Right. So basically, I really enjoyed having a rest in 2020 from not having to do the book fair, because it's tiring. It was like really rocking us. It was taking its toll. My daughter was like, "Do we have to do this again?" I mean, because you helped us get home and get out. So we was just really tired. So anyway, so 2020 I got to relax. 2021 was rolling, and the creator was like, "So, what you think you're doing? Like, you think you're going to relax? What, 2 years?" And so I knew that the book fair needed to exist, and I knew it needed to exist digitally, but I absolutely never envisioned it like being on Zoom. We ain't doing that. We ain't, what? Zoom? No. Not, what? No. I knew I needed something like rendering, like how architects use renderings that move when you move into the different rooms. I knew it needed to do that. And so I was trying to find it. Nobody really knew that. I finally was given. So my brother actually hooked me up with somebody who knew exactly what I needed. And I was able to hook up with this company called Verbella. And Verbella basically had, it doesn't even do it justice to call it virtual, but they were able to provide you with a metaverse environment. So I had a whole campus. And so you would come in there, create your avatar, whatever hair you wanted, man. We had brothers and sisters in there, locks, bald heads, afros, everything. And work on your complexion, whatever you want to have on. This brother named Ben, he was a children's author. Clean all the time. Burgundy pants, burgundy Kango, burgundy shoes, burgundy, blazer with the gray. I'd be like, yo, you could dress your butt off, Brother Ben. I mean, I build websites, so there was a component of it. I was able to make that environment an e-commerce space also. So the authors were able to sell their books in the metaverse. And so you come into this world, we could teleport to different places. We even had book discussions. We had poetry nights, all in the metaverse as little avatars walking around. We would be talking to each other in real time. And like if we needed to do an activity and let's say we needed to pair off, there were these areas you could go into that were lit. If you walked into that lit area, you and the person, you would only hear each other's conversations. Once you step out of the lit area, everybody could hear each other. And it was just, dope. You'd be like, yo, let's teleport to one night I wanted to surprise him. I said, yo, let's teleport to the beach. So we went to the beach and I changed it from day to night. And man, them fireworks was going off. Then people was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Oh my God. It was like you was on the beach and watching fireworks. And so it was more than just selling books. It became like just such an incredible environment because I could call a meeting in 1 minute and everybody be there. And that could not happen in real life. They would have to drive, they would have to park, they would have to come from across town. But we even had a brother from Japan in there, Canada, because they was in the metaverse. Now they 14 years ahead of time. So sometimes he'll be up, when it wasn't time to be up and this and that. But it was just dope. Where can you just have brothers, a brother there from Kenya? Where can you have brothers and sisters join in an environment and you could erase the reality of time? And you don't have to worry about safety. Ain't gonna be no police brutality in here. Ain't gonna be no black on black crime in here. It was really an environment that was safe, that was cultural, and I mean, we had that society decked out. Every nook and cranny was videos and footage and images. I mean, it was really something to behold. We could dance, went to the dance hall. In the dance hall, you saw, you could do all kind of dances. You could do hip hop. You could do salsa. You could. The biggest problem I did not really take heed to is the digital divide. I really did not realize Black people don't have computers. I was surprised. I really just took that for granted. And most people were like, can I just go on the phone? And they wasn't no bums. They was nurses and all kind of stuff. And can I just go on my phone? No, this is an environment. This is a world. No, you got to have a computer. So it just showed me our people, at least my demographic, they're not they're consumers. So a phone is sufficient for most of their activity. People that create, that write or edit or this and that, most of them have computers, right? I love that the authors stepped it up. And each booth, when you walked in their booth, as soon as you walk in the booth, a video starts playing of their book and whatever, like a commercial of their book, So they really stepped up and got those made. And those that couldn't do videos, they made PowerPoint presentations that you were able to walk in their booth and advance on the video at different times. If you walk in, the video starts when you walk in for you. And when I walk in, it starts for me. It was high tech. So it was amazing. And it actually got me into bigger money circles because the bigger money people, so the person I'm working with now with the woodlawncentral.org, that's $1 billion project. But I was introduced to him and he showed me the layout of the city they building and all that. And when he finished, I was like, yeah, I got a metaverse. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, I got a metaverse, If you got a computer, let me know when you want to go. He's like, I got a computer right now. I said, okay, here go the link. Boom, boom. And when he got in that metaverse rather, he was like, yo, can I have events in here? I was like, yep. I said, let's teleport to the auditorium. We teleport to the auditorium. Boop, boop, pop in the auditorium. You see the stage. I show him how to go to the stage, take the laser, point it. I said, but turn around. When he saw the size of the auditorium, I was like, whoa. So I changed it from a 200-person auditorium to a 500-person auditorium. I said, I could change the size of the, he was like, yo, this shit, it was like nothing you've ever seen. So it put me in a world where it was like, yo, I ain't never met nobody who had their own metaverse. And so that put me in a different tier. So it was very advantageous. It was very expensive. It was $52,000 to create. But I didn't care because the regular book fair has ranged me anywhere from $25,000 to $85,000 a year. So doing that I'm like, oh my God, it's too much. I just freaking made it happen. I think I still owe them some money, but I'm just saying. I was so happy and they work with me because I think they needed me as much as I needed them because they had the technological tool, but I had the community.
Yeah.
Like I was able to bring community there. So anyway, that was dope. I really wanted way more people to show up. And here's my measure.
Mhm.
There's a group called Afrotech
Mhm.
that uses the same Verbella platform.
Mhm.
And they did a 2 or 3 day symposium in the metaverse like that, right? Vastly different than what I was able to do, but there's really no but other than the fact that they are a tech company. So you have a demographic that's probably younger than mine, because I found that I think people were just too afraid of me saying coming to the metaverse. Yeah, they're not ready. And that was just it was a little disheartening because I was like, damn, Black people, what we doing right now? Like, we not even, I mean, it showed me in terms of myself. I think I always bring the future to our people. I think I'm definitely going to be somebody that people be like, Asadah tried to show us back in blah, you know. But I'm like, why are y'all going to let that happen? Like, do it now. Don't, I'm not going to BS you. But anyway, so it was an amazing platform. I mean, you literally could have an office in there. My girl rented an office in there. I had my other, Michelle Yisrael.
Yeah.
She taught 2 or 3 college classes in there and brought her students in there. Honey, had them Latinos in there and everything. And I had an activity for them to do. And there was a room I had that was dedicated to our literary ancestors. So they had to go in that room, and it was like on the wall was everybody from, Maya was there, but Francis Cress Welsing was there, fellow Chicagoan. Oscar Brown Jr. was there. It was Margaret Burroughs was there. Like, it was, just all kind of dope ancestors on the wall. And you didn't, wasn't posted who they were. So it was kind of like you had to guess who they were. And that was part of the research of that room. And even in that room, I could reconfigure that room to where everybody could be sitting in a circle, or the desk could be facing like theater style, but each computer on each desk could have content. Like, it was beastly. It was beastly. Like, man, we really did ourselves a disservice not experiencing that. But I think fear was the main thing from what I gathered. I had a friend that was flat out like, I don't want to go in the metaverse. Like, they really didn't. They was just really scared. Like, girl, you ain't got to play no video games going there. It's just whatever. So it was cool though. It was boat. We went on boat rides. Girl, looked like Lake Michigan. And I had like 5 boats in there, and we was able to go on the boats and take boat rides. And it was just a whole world. It was a whole literary world. It was dope. So anyway, so I did that. And it did not, people got to sell their books in the metaverse, not to the quantity that I wanted. But it allowed for a brother in Japan to sell his books in America, and vice versa. And, to get some real international commerce going. And I was able to fly him in for this event as well. So he'll be here for this book fair. Instead of the book fair being one day, I was able to have the book fair up for 6 months.
Okay.
And so people were able to, come in the book fair, metaverse, and experience and buy books and this and this and that. And so yeah, that was from February to like August of 22. If I have the money, I would definitely do it because we got to step it up. But I would probably do it a little differently. Like, I would do it maybe in partnership with Google or some company that could make 1,000 computers available to people. And for them to get the computer, they got to come into the metaverse and buy a book or something like something that got groups and schools involved. Like, I need a team for that. What ends up happening a lot with the book fair is that I'm doing it by myself. And this was one of those things, that I was doing by myself. And it didn't need like the same manpower that I need to do the one that's live, but it still needed a team to help plan outreach, this and this and that, because like I said, sometimes I'm way in the future all the time. And so if I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, because I need to show us ways to be in the future. Because we stay in the past. We stay, if another slave movie or civil rights movie come out, what we doing? Like, we can't make no movies for the future. So anyway, girl, that's the deal with that. It'll probably come about, but my money will not be, I won't have to look for money. It'll just be a thing, an additional thing that we do.
The Soulful Chicago Book Fair looks like a huge festival with blocks of people, books, food, and entertainment. How many people, how many people do you estimate attended your largest Soulful Chicago Book Fair event? Approximately.
I think it was the second year, and I think that was like 4,500.
This is a huge undertaking, founded by you, of course. So congratulations on all the hard work and dedication put forth to make this a successful event year after year. Are there any people, organizations, sponsors, or anyone that you would like to mention for their contributions that they may have given along the way?
Fortunately, the group that always was there for us and always gave the most money was POA, the Preservation of Affordable Housing. And they're responsible, because there's a sister in there named Felicia Dawson, and she just cares about the community. So when you look on Cottage Grove from like 61st to 63rd and all those new apartment buildings and the new restaurants and businesses, and she made sure that happened. And she made sure that I got money for the book fair too, because she was always appreciative of my contribution to Woodlawn and bringing that type of activity to Woodlawn. So that's one company that was always there for me, unequivocally.
What do you have planned for your 5th annual Soulful Chicago Book Fair? And what are all the details? How the authors can sign up, how people can come out and enjoy the event, and every single thing people need to know.
So our title sponsors Woodlawn Central, which is a byproduct of Apostolic Church of God here in Chicago. And like I said, they have a $1 billion project of building this city in that space. And I work very closely with not Reverend Brazier, but Reverend Brazier's son, Jay Byron. And basically, he was one of the people very impressed by the metaverse, and immediately took me sort of into that circle of creators and the innovators, leaders. And so they're the title sponsor of the event. And this year the whole theme is we're back. And because people really were asking about the live book fair coming back, and we won't be on 61st Street this year. We're going to be on 63rd Street this year, right in front of Apostolic Church, as an extension of working with that group. And it's really good because, I went to 61st Street the other day and it looked like a crack house in comparison to where we are this year. It just looked, they're doing construction and it's broken up. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't have an event here. So anyway, so we're going to be right on the Apostolic campus. And I like the variety of genres of music. There'll be blues, there'll be neo soul, we're actually going to have the Japanese author Taquan Amaru perform. He has a workshop called Two Countries, One Soul, where he's going to just kind of deal with, what it was like being Black coming up in Japan, not no transplant, but you really from Japan, like part of the culture, but at the same time you a Black man with locks to your butt, you know, and you know, what is that like embracing African culture and Asiatic culture and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we got jazz, we got a lot of different entertainers on 2 stages. We have a main stage, small stage, and there'll be some workshops. One of the workshops that I'll be doing is a cryptocurrency workshop for folks because they just don't know about it. And then you know, there'll just be open mics, author talks, still structuring some of that stuff, but yeah, it's authors galore, you know, fiction writers, nonfiction writers, food vendors are starting to come to the table. Somebody today was like, I'm a vegan chef. Kind of, yeah, but another one. I mean, it's just, so it's all coming in down the pipe, just getting people registered. And I think the biggest difference this year for me, marketing wise, I do a lot of guerrilla marketing, which really takes a lot of time and effort from me. But I chose to promote the book fair on the Chicago Transit system. And so you see advertisement for the book fair on train platforms, on buses, I mean, it's just, we would come, me and my daughter got off the bus the other day and we were getting ready to cross the street and she was like, Mommy, look. And after the bus we got off, it was like a big sign, we're back, Soulful Chicago Book Fair. And I was like, oh my God, wait, I gotta get a video. Wait, take a picture. You know, we was really just these larger than life moving book fair advertisements. I think for me, people have already been calling me about the book fair from those. And so they're doing what I intended them to do. So just loving it.
www.redhotradio.fm